1:19 a.m. Persian Gulf, 14 nautical miles east of Abu Musa Island. An Iranian patrol boat just illuminated a U.S. Navy helicopter with a fire control radar. The crew of Iron Fist II had 9 seconds before the lock became a launch. This is Global Warfare TV. What you're about to hear is a reconstruction of a night engagement over the Persian Gulf that involved 2 MH-60S Seahawk helicopters, 3 Iranian Revolutionary Guard patrol boats, and a decision made at 200 feet above dark water in under 30 seconds that almost ended with an anti-aircraft missile traveling toward an American crew. We're breaking down the weapons, the tactics, the failure that put those helicopters in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the aftermath that nobody publicly acknowledged. Stay with us. Before we get into the timeline, you need to understand what those helicopters were doing in that airspace. Operation Sentinel Shield was not a combat mission. At least, it wasn't supposed to be. It was a maritime escort tasking 2 MH-60S Seahawk helicopters from the USS Bataan operating as armed overwatch for a commercial tanker convoy transiting the southern approach to the Strait of Hormuz. 3 tankers, 1 Dutch, 2 Liberian flagged. Combined cargo, approximately 5.4 million barrels of crude oil. The convoy had requested U.S. Navy escort after a series of limpet mine attacks on commercial shipping in the region over the preceding 6 weeks. The MH-60S is not a pure gunship, but she's not helpless. Each aircraft was armed that night with 2 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles on the port stub wing and an M134 minigun in the cabin doorway. The M134 fires 7.62 millimeter rounds at between 2,000 and 6,000 rounds per minute. At night, with NVG-equipped crew against surface targets, it is a highly effective weapon system. The 2 helicopters, call signs Iron Fist II-1 and Iron Fist II-2, had been on station for approximately 3 hours when the situation changed. At 0:47 a.m., the lead helicopter's ESM, electronic support measures, picked up radar emissions from a bearing of 285. The emissions matched an Iranian Oghab-class patrol boat's search radar. This was logged. It was not immediately alarming. Iranian patrol boats operate in these waters routinely. The crew of Iron Fist II-1 advised the convoy, and both helicopters moved to the eastern side of the convoy track, maintaining 200 feet altitude and 80 knots airspeed. At 0:58 a.m., a second radar source appeared from bearing 312, and at 1:04 a.m., a third. 3 separate Iranian radar signatures, all converging on the same general area. The helicopter crews requested updated intelligence from the Bataan's Combat Information Center. The response took 11 minutes, not because the CIC was slow, but because the watch officer on duty had initially cross-referenced the radar emissions against the wrong library profile. The Iranian Paycap class boat and the Oghab class boat have overlapping radar signatures in certain modes, and the initial classification came back as possible civilian harbor craft. The watch officer queried the database a second time with corrected parameters at 1:12 a.m. The corrected classification, 3 IRGCN patrol boats, armed, converging on the convoy at approximately 28 knots. That information reached Iron Fist II-1 at 1:14 a.m. The Iranian boats reached visual range through NVGs of the convoy at 1:17 a.m. and at 1:19:03 a.m. the fire control radar locked on. A fire control radar lock is not the same as a search radar contact. A search radar is looking at everything. A fire control radar is pointing at you specifically. It is calculating your range, your speed, your altitude, your course. It is feeding that data to a weapons system. When that happens, the crew of the aircraft has a decision window that is measured not in minutes, but in seconds. The international law of armed conflict does not require a fire control radar to actually launch a weapon before a crew can defend themselves. Under the ROE governing that operation, a hostile act, which includes illumination by a fire control radar, constitutes sufficient grounds for self-defense response. The crew of Iron Fist 2-1 knew this. They had been through the briefing 3 times in the 48 hours before the mission. But knowing the ROE and applying it in the dark over water at 200 feet with an Iranian missile radar locked onto your aircraft are 2 different things. The pilot of Iron Fist 2-1, who will be identified here only as a senior naval aviator with 3 prior Gulf deployments, later described the moment to his squadron debrief as the 9-second question. His words: "Do you brake and evade, or do you engage?" Braking and evading means putting the aircraft into a hard descending turn, deploying flares, dropping to low altitude, and putting the convoy between your aircraft and the Iranian radar. This disrupts the fire control solution, but it pulls the armed escort off the convoy. The 3 Iranian boats are still there, and they haven't been stopped. Engaging means turning toward the threat, designating with the Hellfire laser, and firing. At the range and bearing of the threat, approximately 2.1 nautical miles, the Hellfire has a flight time of roughly 9 to 12 seconds. Fast, accurate, but it means crossing the ROE threshold. It means American missiles hitting Iranian naval vessels. It means a night engagement in the Persian Gulf that will not stay quiet. The pilot chose a 3rd option. At 1:19:12, 9 seconds after the fire control lock, he broke toward the threat, not away from it. He descended from 200 feet to 40 feet, which put his aircraft below the optimal engagement envelope for the surface-to-air missile the Iranian boat was likely equipped with. The MANPAD class MH-60S shoulder-fired with a minimum engagement altitude in practical terms of around 60 to 80 feet for a fast-moving target. Simultaneously, he designated the lead Iranian boat with his targeting system and transmitted over the International Maritime Emergency Frequency, Channel 16. Iranian naval vessels, this is U.S. Navy aircraft Iron Fist 2-1. You have illuminated a U.S. military aircraft with fire control radar. Cease immediately. Weapons free authorized if you do not comply. He transmitted it twice. The fire control radar stayed active. Iron Fist 2-2. Tau, the 2nd helicopter, had moved to a flanking position, 1.4 nautical miles to the north of the lead Iranian boat, outside the radar's primary arc, well within Hellfire range. At 1:19:47, the lead Iranian boat fired, not a missile, a 40mm cannon round. The Oghab-class patrol boats carry a 40mm Bofors-type cannon on the bow. The round passed approximately 30 meters above and ahead of Iron Fist 2-1's nose. At 40 feet altitude and 120 knots airspeed, the pilot had accelerated during his descent. The margin was real but thin. At 1:19:51, Iron Fist 2-1 fired a Hellfire. The AGM-114K Hellfire 2 is a laser-guided anti-armor missile. Warhead, tandem-shaped charge designed for defeating reactive armor on tanks. Against the unarmored hull of a 44-meter Iranian patrol boat, the effect is not subtle. Flight time at 2.1 nautical miles, 11 seconds. The Hellfire struck the lead Iranian boat at 1:22 a.m. It impacted midships, just forward of the engine compartment. The after-action assessment described the result: catastrophic structural failure of the central hull section. The boat broke apart. It sank in approximately 90 seconds. The 2nd and 3rd Iranian boats immediately cut their speeds. The fire control radar went offline at 1:20:08, 6 seconds after the strike. Iron Fist 2 moved to engage the 2nd boat, which was now at 1.2 nautical miles and decelerating. The crew held targeting, awaited instructions. The pilot of Iron Fist 2-1 was already on the secure radio to the Bataan CIC and up the chain to 5th Fleet. At 1:21 a.m., the 2nd and 3rd Iranian boats turned away. They did not return fire. They did not launch missiles. They accelerated north at maximum speed and were tracked by the Batan's radar until they entered Iranian territorial waters at 1:34 a.m. The entire engagement, from fire control radar lock to the Iranian withdrawal, had lasted 14 minutes and 57 seconds. The lead Iranian boat was destroyed. Post-incident intelligence developed over the following weeks from intercepts and third-party reporting assessed that the boat had a crew of 11. No survivors were confirmed. Iran conducted a search operation in the area the following morning. No official statement about casualties was released. Iron Fist 2-1 and Iron Fist 2-2 returned to the Batan. The three tankers completed their convoy transit without further incident. The Dutch-flagged tanker's captain, who had been on the bridge watching the engagement through binoculars, later filed a report with Lloyd's of London describing significant hostile action by Iranian armed vessels against U.S. military escort aircraft. That report eventually found its way to the maritime press. But here is what the official record does not fully address. The fire control radar lock that triggered the engagement came from the lead Iranian boat. Post-incident analysis of the radar emissions, reviewed by a joint NSA and ONI technical team, showed that the fire control radar activated and locked 34 seconds before the 40mm cannon fired. The sequence suggests the Iranian boat crew fully intended to engage the helicopter. This was not a navigation error or a test activation. The radar locked, the crew waited for a firing solution to settle, and they fired as soon as it did. What stopped them from firing a MH-60S MANPAD missile instead of a cannon round? The assessment, the pilot's decision to descend to 40 feet, created an engagement geometry that made the MANPAD shot extremely difficult. The minimum effective engagement altitude for the MH-60S against a fast-moving low-altitude target in a target approach geometry is estimated at 50 to 80 feet under optimal conditions. At 40 feet and 120 knots, the helicopter was pushing the outer edge of what that missile could reliably hit. The 40mm cannon shot, which missed, may have been the Iranian crew's best available option in that moment. If the pilot had maintained 200 feet altitude, the MH-60S would have had a reliable engagement envelope. Based on known capabilities of that missile system, the time from launch to impact at 2.1 nautical miles would have been approximately 7 to 9 seconds. Iron Fist 2-1 might not have had time to react. 40 feet of altitude, that was the margin. The U.S. Navy did not publicly acknowledge the engagement for 11 days. When the Fifth Fleet Public Affairs Office did release a statement, it confirmed that U.S. military forces responded in self-defense after being subjected to hostile fire by Iranian naval vessels while conducting lawful escort operations in international waters. No casualty figures were given, no boat names, no details about the Hellfire strike. Iran state media ran a story the following week claiming Iranian patrol craft had been illegally attacked by American forces while conducting routine patrol operations. The story stated that the boats had been in Iranian territorial waters. Navigation data reviewed by the after-action team placed the lead Iranian boat 14 nautical miles from the Abu Musa Island baseline, well within international waters. The political fallout was limited, largely because neither side wanted to amplify the incident. The strait remained open. The tankers delivered their cargo. The insurance market repriced Gulf transits upward by 8% over the following month, but the operational lessons were significant. The Batan's CIC watch officer, who had initially misclassified the Iranian radar signatures, was removed from the watch rotation pending a review. The 11-minute intelligence processing delay between the first radar detection and the correct threat classification was flagged as unacceptable given the engagement tempo in the Persian Gulf. New procedures were issued for radar library cross-referencing under time pressure. The MH-60S pilots received Navy Air Medals for the engagement. The citation, unclassified but not widely publicized, described the pilot's decision to descend to low altitude under fire control radar lock as a tactically decisive maneuver that degraded the threat's engagement parameters and prevented the loss of the aircraft and crew. 3 words in that citation carry the full weight of the night: prevented the loss. Because that is what the engagement actually was. Not a demonstration of American military dominance, not an easy win, a near thing. An 11-man Iranian crew that may have succeeded if one pilot had kept his aircraft at the altitude he was supposed to maintain. A fire control radar that locked on in the dark and stayed on for 9 seconds while 2 American aviators made a decision that most people will never face. The convoy completed its transit. The tankers offloaded their cargo. The world's fuel supply moved on. And somewhere in the Persian Gulf, in the dark water between Abu Musa Island and the Omani coast, the wreckage of an Iranian patrol boat settled on the bottom, 11 men with it, a fact that is known to both governments and acknowledged by neither. That is the Persian Gulf at night in the modern era. Not headlines, margins: 40 feet, 9 seconds, 11 minutes of intelligence delay, 1 pilot's descent into the dark. This breakdown of the Iron Fist engagement brings you as close to the operational edge as open-source reconstruction can get. Subscribe to Global Warfare TV for tactical analysis you won't find in the headlines. Tell us in the comments at 1:19 a.m. with a fire control radar locked on your aircraft. Do you break away and protect the aircraft, or do you hold the approach and protect the convoy? Your answer reveals how you understand the cost of escort duty. Stay vigilant, stay informed. I'll see you in the next one.